Big meat producers have been protesting hard against a newly approved proposition of a Californian law that prevents cruelty to farm animals. Meat producers are claiming it'll completely transform the multi-billion-dollar pork supply chain and lead to increases in price and possible shortages. Keep watching, as we're about to give you the latest updates on this matter. First, why California? Animal agriculture has always been a huge industry in California. In fact, it is estimated that at least 40 million animals are raised annually for purely commercial purposes. Now, California hasn't always been hard on animal cruelty prevention laws. Until 2008, there was actually no law that provided a comprehensive set of guidelines on how farm owners are supposed to treat their livestock. But late in 2008, Proposition 2 was approved, and it predominantly focused on the confinement of farm animals. It went into effect in 2015, and any farmer or meat producer that violated the law would either be handed a fine up to $1,000 or go to jail for 180 days. The worst would be both paying $1,000 and spending 6 months of your life in jail. So why California? Well, it makes sense when you're a state raising more than 40 million animals. You're probably wondering, if the law is effective since 2015, why is there a surge in protests now? Well, the answer is simple. It's because of Proposition 12. What is Proposition 12? Proposition 12 also defines the confinement standards of farm animals to ensure they are raised and treated humanely. Proposition 12 bans gestation cases and now puts forward a requirement for farm owners that all hens and pregnant sows must be kept cage-free. What are gestation cages? They're tiny cages, like really tiny cages that prevent pigs and other farm animals from moving around. It would make sense if it allowed the animal to at least look right or left and lay down to rest. But no, prior to the ban of gestation cages, animals were treated so inhumanely and confined to a small cage, which kept them in an upright position 24 hours and allowed absolutely zero movement. Animals could not even tilt their heads. Initially, Proposition 12 went effective as of 2020 and only focused on defining the minimum space requirements for hens and calves. However, after this year's provision, Proposition 12 has set a standard for the minimum space requirements for breeding pigs and called a ban on gestation cages. Next, public backlash. The approval of the most recent provision of Proposition 12 has sparked a fierce debate between animal rights activists and meat producers. On one hand, you have activists encouraging the state for implementing the law and ensuring humane treatment of animals, and at the same time, you have meat producers claiming it'll destroy the meat industry and maybe even undermine national food security. Senator Chuck Grassley called the law a war on breakfast, and others are calling it the Bacon Gate. We're also seeing some big names calling the law unconstitutional and flawed, probably because they won't make as much money as they were making before the provision. The American Farm Bureau Federation and National Pork Producers have asked the Supreme Court to review the law again. Both bodies claim that the law is a direct violation of some Commerce Clause. We're not going to get into that Commerce Clause, but the Supreme Court already rejected a similar appeal put forward by North American Meat Institute last year and will probably reject all appeals this year too. Apart from meat producers, grocery and restaurant business groups are also opposing the new provision of Proposition 12. Some groups have actually filed lawsuits claiming that there isn't enough official guidance on the appropriate implementation of Proposition 12. It was bound to happen. Up next, living in their own coffin. Josh Balk, who is vice president of farm animal protection at the Humane Society, was livid speaking on the matter. He expressed that the law was common sense, and he's not wrong. Let's break it down and then look at it. Gestation is basically the period from conception to birth. So if you place an animal in a gestation cage during its entire pregnancy, the animal can't move for a single second. And that's what the law is banning. You can't keep a pregnant animal in a gestation cage. It's common sense. Imagine stuffing your ordinary microwave oven at home with 6 to 8 chickens. Or imagine putting female pigs in cages so small that they can't turn around for not a couple of months, but for 4 to 5 years. That's absolutely barbaric. And you don't have to be an animal rights activist or vegan to understand how wrong that is. He then said that ordinary Americans can agree that this is fundamentally wrong. This was probably a shot at those big producers and councils that are only concerned concerned with the economics of the industry and not the morality of their actions. When you think about it, that's a different debate, but it still has to be included in the discussion if you're talking about the treatment of farm animals as a whole. When asked about the latest provision of Proposition 12, Bulk claimed that with gestation cages, a pig is basically being forced to live in her own coffin. Next, the true economics of Proposition 12. Now, to understand the true economics of Proposition 12, we have to first understand why farm owners and meat producers actually use gestation cages. For starters, you can squeeze a lot of pigs into a small space, so you're basically reducing cost because you don't need as much area anymore. And since Provision 12 does exactly the opposite and provides standards for confinement areas, meat producers are arguing it'll add to the price of meat. But that isn't entirely true. A 2020 United Nations report found that it was actually more economical to not use gestation cages. The report primarily focused on food safety rather than food security, but it also took the economics as a whole. When you're allowing pregnant animals to have a set space to roam around in, you're also reducing the possibilities of a disease outbreak. And even if it's not a major disease, you're still preventing the entire lot from going bad. Secondly, pigs that are not born in a gestation cage are actually healthier, and a healthy piglet means a valuable piglet. So technically, the proponents of Proposition 12 actually improve food safety and have little to no impact on the economics of farming livestock. Next, compliant egg producers. Since Proposition 12 also banned gestation cages for hens, egg producers were also impacted by this law. However, unlike meat producers, egg producers have quietly complied with all the guidelines and standards. It's probably because it's easier to produce an egg as opposed to raising a piglet. If the hen is healthy, the egg will be healthy. Plus, not to forget that if a producer fails to raise a healthy pig, it won't be fit for public consumption. An official representative from the United Egg Producers recently issued a written statement in which they assured that all members of their association would comply with the new hen housing laws as soon as they are effective. United Egg Producers is the largest egg producer association in America. Now, if we were to compare the two industries, it might be easier to understand why egg producers have been more compliant. The entire meat industry in America was valued at $170 billion in 2020. On the contrary, the egg industry is worth a tiny $8 billion. Even if we were to look at pork alone, the industry was valued at almost $24 billion. And that's probably why egg producers have been more compliant. Banning gestation will have a much sizable impact on the economics of the meat industry. So maybe that's why meat producers have been opposing the implementation of Proposition 12. Lastly, $50 more expensive. Being humane in today's society comes at a price, and that's a truth for each industry. You'd have to spend tons of money to do something that is morally correct or beneficial for society. And if the debate is not about being morally correct, you'd have to spend a lot of money just to save some money. A prime example of this are electric cars. You need to actually buy the car first before you can start saving money on fuel. And Proposition 12 will be sort of similar. According to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, it was estimated that each resident will face almost a $50 increase in annual food costs. So it doesn't really matter if you're an animal rights activist or a person that loves some juicy pork ribs. You'll be paying an additional $50 each year just so animals are treated better. President of California Retailers Rachel Michelin said that this will end in one of two ways. You're either not going to get the product or you're going to be paying a lot more for it. It's a bit too early to comment on exactly how things will play out now that Prop 12 has been implemented. But one thing is for sure, the animals that give us food are going to be treated a little better. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Will meat producers be able to reverse the implementation of Proposition 12? Or is the whole argument about food security just a bluff? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more informative videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.